Good morning, everyone. It is a great pleasure to see all of you today, to come out on a wintry Sunday. Makes me think of Robert Hayden and those winter Sundays, to hear and celebrate literature and to be with the Little Patuxent Review. My name is Stephen Leyva. I'm the editor of the Little Patuxent Review, and I'm just overjoyed to be able to introduce to you these fine writers who make up this beautiful issue. I was thinking a lot about what Keats says about beauty and truth being synonymous, being the same thing. And I gotta shout out our really great staff at the Little Patuxent Review. If you find this journal beautiful to the eye, if you find it sonorous and beautiful to the ear, there are people behind the scenes who have contributed to that beauty and truth who don't always get recognized. And one of them is our grant writer, longtime grant writer, Nancy Leyva. She is retiring. And we are beyond grateful, because Little Patuxent Review would not exist without the dedicated efforts of folks like Nancy being able to secure funding for us. We have funding from Howard County, we have funding from the state of Maryland, we have funding from generous donors, but we exist because of her efforts. And you probably will never see her up at a podium, but her name should ring out for what it's done for this journal and for the literary community here in Central Maryland. So our biggest honors and thanks to Nancy for her service. It's also my great pleasure to announce that this was an issue that was guest edited by a dear friend and an excellent writer and an excellent editor, Anthony Moll. Anthony Moll is going to come up and share a little bit about what his process was. And Anthony, if you don't know about him, he is the author of the recent memoir called Out of Step. It's a fantastic memoir about coming out in the military and about the experiences that Anthony had. It's published by Ohio State University Press. It is a must-read from 2018, and it will be a must-read for 2019. You are in good hands with this writer and this editor. He's also a professor here in Maryland. He teaches at Stevenson, he teaches at the University of Baltimore, he teaches at Morgan State. He seems to be everywhere at once, and I'm so glad to count him among my dear friends. He's also my co-conspirator in watching more Star Trek than we should. So please welcome Anthony Moll.
Thank you, Stephen. And thank you again all for coming out. Again, it's really nice that you made your way out on like a blustery, miserable day. Thanks for it not snowing or freezing rain, right? Really nice you didn't have to reschedule this. That's great. But yeah, you could be anywhere here on a Sunday and you're here listening to literature and supporting this great publication and the staff and board behind it. I'm going to read my notes today are from the editor's note that opens the issue, just some small modifications from it. So when editor Stephen Leyva first asked me to guest edit this issue of Little Patuxent Review and curate a folio from LGBTQ plus Marylanders, it was right as a greater literary community was having conversations about why themed issues might not be the best way for publications to amplify diverse voices. Some argue that by putting all of X writer in a single issue, editors may feel excused from doing the hard work of creating a diverse journal year-round. And there's merit to those arguments. Journals must do more than special issues. But there's also value in taking a moment to look at the spectrum of voices within a given group and putting many such voices together in conversation. At a time in which we see hard-fought gains for marginalized people slipping in the wrong direction, finding solidarity in both our shared experience and the difference among our differences feels tremendously urgent. It can sometimes feel that editors are more interested in pre-existing narratives about LGBTQ plus experiences. Stories like coming out or my first pride, And there's nothing wrong with those narratives. They still disrupt important ways, they still possess a lot of utility, a lot of beauty, and we've chosen to include a few such stories in this issue. But we also have other expressions of queerness that have yet to be told widely. Stories about the rest of our lives, our histories, ghost stories, lamentations, prayers, anxieties about the end of the world, eco-poetry, everyday racism, songs about our jobs, about our neighborhoods. And we want to be able to express our whole selves. I hope this issue validates that, and that we put forward a collection that contains multitudes. The LPR staff and I put together an issue that shows off the striking writing of LGBTQ plus people from Maryland, the region, and the continent. For the folio, we focus on writers in the state, and after putting this work together, I'm really humbled by the queer and trans talent in our corner of the Mid-Atlantic. LPR already has a history of publishing amazing LGBTQ plus writers, both in the region and throughout the country. So it came as no surprise to me when the editors selected so much enthralling queer writing, like that of Rita Mukherjee and Mateo Lara, to round out the rest of the issue. I want to thank first the LPR staff and board members for letting me do this, really specific, cool, queer, radical thing. And I want to thank everyone whose work makes up the issue, including the straight and cisgender writers whose work we've chosen to include, people we've interviewed, photographed, and profiled. It has been an absolute honor to work with such brilliant writers, poets, and editors. Thank you so much, and thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Anthony. I had such a pleasure working on this issue with Anthony, and it is a pleasure that I know will continue as I read and reread this issue. So I hope it's a pleasure to you all as well. So the way that we do things for our readers is that we always read their bios at the top of the section, and then they come up and read one after another. So we're going to start that right now. We're going to start with our first section of readers. I'm going to read a little bit of their amended bios just for time, and then we will get to the literature that I know you're all here to hear and read. So our first reader is Winnabelle Zhenyu Zong. Winnabelle is a poet and djembe player. She was born and raised in an industrial city in China. Zong holds a BA in creative writing from Franklin and Marshall College, where she received the Knoll Music Award. And her work has appeared or is forthcoming in numerous magazines, including High Shelf Press, Rigorous, as well as others. She now mentors high school students on matriculation at College Advising Corps. After that, we will have Tyler Mendelson. Tyler's a writer living in Baltimore with their partner Trish and Kat Cosmo. Their work has been featured in Queen Mob's Tea House, Baltimore Art, Baltimore Fishbowl, as well as others. Ghost Lore is a piece from their upcoming book. Yes, we are so excited about that upcoming book. Tyler is interested in language. After Tyler, we'll have Stephanie Daring. Stephanie, are you here? Oh, great. Stephanie is a queer writer from Washington State who earned her MFA in poetry from Washington University in St. Louis. Her work appears in The Offing, Lavender Review, and Narrative Magazine, and was a finalist in their 2013 30 Below contest. You can find her exploring Washington, D.C. or online at Stephanie Joyd. And we will then have Adam, how do you say your last name, Adam?
Jen Caro.
One more time.
Jen Caro.
Jen Caro. I was always, insistent on N, I wanted to be Steven, not Steve, no version of Steve, no Stevies, although I was named after Stevie Wonder, so if I battled for an N, I feel like I could say a name correctly. Adam is the author of the poetry collection Morning Time in the Household, Looking Out, in a children's book Uma in the Umbrella. His poetry can be found in Port Lore, the Minnesota Review, Maudlin House, Literary Orphans, and others. And lastly, in the first section, we have my dear friend Susan Thornton Hobby. Susan's going to read a little bit from the interview that she conducted. Susan is a writer and editor with 20 years of experience and a dear friend to the Little Patuxent Review. A former newspaper journalist, Hobby received her master's in literature in 1995. A 20-year board member of the Howard County Poetry and Literature Society. Hobby has been an artistic director on the board, as well as writing grants, producing their television show, and organizing events. This is the small version. She does everything. She has interviewed numerous people for Little Patuxent Review, including Michael Chabon, Alice McDermott, and former U.S. Poet Laureate Donald Hall. She also has edited several collections of poetry in a poetry anthology, and she's the copy editor for Cherry Castle Publishing. Please, with the warmest of welcomes, please clap for our first section of readers.